Every time a financial disaster hits, it feels totally new, right? Like this perfect, once-in-a-lifetime storm of bad luck and terrible decisions. But what if they're not unique at all? What if I told you they're all just reruns of the exact same story, just with different characters? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the devastating blueprint they all seem to follow.
Okay, I know it sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, but the answer to this question, it's pretty much the key to understanding the entire financial world. Because all three of them are just different characters in the same old drama of boom and bust. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're unpacking the blueprint that ties them all together.
I mean, just think about the timing here. This is Herbert Hoover in 1929. This isn't just wishful thinking. This is supreme, top-of-the-world confidence. And he said it just months before the crash that kicked off the Great Depression. It's that kind of blinding overconfidence, that hubris, that you always see right before the big fall.
And then there's this. These four little words. Honestly, this might be the single most dangerous phrase in all of finance. It's the mantra, the chant you hear in every single bubble. It's this deep-seated belief that, no, this time the old rules, the laws of financial gravity, they just don't apply. Spoiler alert, they always do.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, every huge fire starts with just a tiny spark, right? And financial bubbles are exactly the same. They don't just materialize out of thin air. Nope, they need some kind of fuel, and they need something to light it.
And if you look back through history, that spark is almost always one of three things. First up, cheap money. Think super low interest rates. It's easy to borrow, and suddenly there's all this cash flooding the system just looking for a place to go. Then you've got a revolutionary new technology. Something so exciting it feels like it's completely rewriting the future. And finally, there's sweeping deregulation, which is basically when the government just steps back and says, you know what, let the market do its thing. And seriously, you see this pattern over and over and over again. The Roaring '20s, that was all about easy credit and people borrowing money to gamble on stocks. Japan in the '80s, super low interest rates created this absolutely massive property and stock bubble. The late '90s, come on, it was the internet. And that huge housing bubble in the early 2000s, it was kicked off when the Fed slashed interest rates to the floor. It's the exact same script, just with a different cast of characters every time. Okay, so once that fire is lit, it needs oxygen to really grow into a raging inferno. And that oxygen, it's us. It's human psychology. This is the part of the story where logic just packs its bags and walks right out the door, and this sort of mass delusion starts to take hold. A big part of it starts with something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. See, in a bull market where everything's going up, literally anyone can make money. You could blindfold yourself, throw a dart at a list of stocks, and you'd probably still come out ahead. And this creates this totally false sense of genius. You get all these brand new investors who start thinking they're the next Warren Buffett. And all that overconfidence, it just pours more fuel on the fire. And pretty soon, the mantra for everyone becomes, get big fast. This was literally Jeff Bezos' game plan for Amazon back in the dot-com days. The idea was, forget about profits, who cares about a sustainable business model, just grow at all costs. And this is such classic bubble thinking. The goal isn't to build a solid, profitable company. The goal is to get so enormous that you feel inevitable, even if you're just burning through mountains of cash to do it. Yeah, it really all comes down to this one simple, powerful illusion. Everyone's a genius in a bull market. When every single bet you make seems to turn to gold, it's incredibly easy to start thinking you're skillful, not just lucky. And that's when people start making more and more reckless bets. Because hey, why not? You feel like you literally can't lose. And the results of this mindset are, well, they're completely absurd. You get a company like Pets.com, famous for its little sock puppet mascot, that was literally losing money on every single bag of dog food it sold. Or look at Japan in '89, where the hype got so crazy that the tiny patch of land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was valued at more than all of the real estate in the entire state of California. And then you have someone like Bernie Madoff, where the hype wasn't even about crazy returns. It was about exclusivity. The whole scam was built on making people feel special, like they were in on a secret. So look, hype and human psychology are incredibly powerful forces. But for a bubble to grow to truly epic, world-breaking proportions, it needs machinery. It needs complex, confusing financial tools that are designed to do two things: hide the real risk and pump up the perceived gains. This is where we move from delusion to outright financial deception.
And believe me, there is a playbook for this stuff. You've got your classic Ponzi scheme, which Bernie Madoff perfected, paying old investors with new investors' money. You've got the pump and dump, mastered by Stratton Oakmont, the Wolf of Wall Street guys. Then there's Enron's creative accounting, where they booked imaginary future profits as if they were real today. And of course, the 2008 crisis was built on securitization, taking thousands of terrible loans, bundling them together, and somehow getting them stamped with a super safe AAA rating.
This quote that came out of the Enron scandal might be the single best explanation of complex financial fraud I have ever heard. It perfectly breaks down how they used all these shady shell companies to hide billions in debt. I know, the official term sounds super complicated, but at the end of the day, it was just a fancy shell game, all designed to fool everybody and keep that stock price flying high.
All right, so you've got the spark, you've got the hype, and you've got the machine churning away. The party is absolutely raging. But eventually, and I mean inevitably, the music stops. And when a bubble pops, it's never a slow, gentle deflation. It's sudden, it's violent, and it's catastrophic. I mean, just look at how fast things can unravel. The 2008 crisis wasn't some slow, graceful decline. It was a massive, system-wide heart attack. In the span of just a few weeks, the entire global financial system went from looking okay to teetering on the absolute brink of collapse. The dominoes just started falling. Fannie Mae, Lehman Brothers, AIG, one after another, so fast that governments had to throw hundreds of billions of dollars at the problem just to stop the whole thing from melting down completely. And the sheer scale of the wealth that gets destroyed, it's just staggering. When the dot-com bubble burst, $5 trillion of investor wealth gone, just vaporized. That's not a rounding error. That is a system-shocking amount of money. Thousands of companies disappeared, and countless life savings went right along with them. And after the pop, that's when the real pain begins, because the fallout isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking about real-world consequences for millions of ordinary people, most of whom had absolutely nothing to do with inflating the bubble in the first place. Just look at the aftermath of 2008. It's a tale of two completely different realities. On one side, you had Wall Street. They got a $700 billion bailout, bonuses came back pretty quick, and very few people faced any real consequences. But on the other side, you had Main Street. We're talking 8.7 million jobs lost, 4 million homes foreclosed on, entire retirement savings just wiped out. This story, this disconnect, is a theme you see again and again after these crashes. And the long-term ripple effects are just profound. Now, sometimes a crisis can actually lead to good things, like major reforms. Think of the new rules that came in after the Great Depression or after Enron blew up. But sometimes the damage is so deep that it leads to decades of pain. Just look at Japan, which suffered through 2 lost decades of economic stagnation after its bubble burst back in the early 90s.
So there you have it. That's the blueprint, the spark, the hype, the crooked mechanics, the violent pop, and the devastating aftermath. Which brings us, of course, to today, and to the one question we can't avoid asking. Are we watching this exact same script play out all over again right now with AI?
Just take a look at these numbers for a second. What you're seeing is absolutely massive spending and just staggering losses that completely dwarf the actual revenue the industry is bringing in. This is a classic warning sign. It's that huge disconnect between the hype around the investment and the actual on-the-ground business reality. This industry is burning through cash at a rate that is just mind-boggling. And then you see a quote like this from the CEO of OpenAI, and it's just stunning. Let me get this straight. The company behind ChatGPT, the literal face of the entire AI revolution, is admitting that it loses money on its main subscription product? The more popular it gets, the more money it loses? I mean, if that doesn't sound exactly like Pets.com losing money on every bag of dog food, I don't know what does. Look, the blueprint is always there. You just have to know what you're looking for. We've just walked through the entire pattern, right? From that first spark of new tech and cheap money, to the wildfire of psychological hype, the shady mechanics that fuel it, and the inevitable, devastating crash. So the real question we're left with isn't if another bubble is going to happen, it's whether you are seeing the signs of this one right now, before it's too late.